What's up everybody, Coach Mills here, coming at you with the brand new 1.07 weapons tier list, where we're going to be breaking down the best to worst weapons in the entire game based on a lot of the changes in pro play and of course based on a lot of the weapons changes that happened in the most recent 1.07 patch. Now that being said, however, you got to watch this video to the end or else you're going to be running it down mid with the worst weapon in the game and you're going to be losing games as a result. But if you go to GameLeap.com, you're going to start dominating your games with ease. We got in-depth advanced tips and tricks, advanced mechanical positioning, game sense guides, and in-depth VOD reviews made by Radiant tier talent. We have everything you need at the GameLeap website, so go check it out in the links down below, and I can't wait to see you there. But without further ado, let's just jump right into it. Now, kicking it off with the best of the best, or the meta-defining weapons, we're gonna start off in the S tier, and the top big daddy of the S tier right now is none other than the Operator. We all have been watching pro matches, and the Operator is one of the most defining weapons in the entire meta right now. Specifically in the hands of a Jet player, an Op feels absolutely dominant, and the reason this is because Jets can fundamentally play different than every single other agent on Ops. You can push angles aggressively, you can be playing in different elevations, you can musical chair Ops, which means you can play 1 point one time on defense, jump to the other point, jump to the other point, and Jet, of course, because of her tailwind, allows her to get out of any sticky situation. Just go watch Wardell's stream or any other big opper that plays Jet, and you're gonna see just how they op and how they dominate again and again, and they can get that numbers advantage and not get traded out. It works all the way in your low SR games, all the way into pro play. Definitely one of the most important weapons to either one, master, or two, find strategies to deal with, or you're just going to be losing tons of games and you're not going to be able to climb. Now, moving on to the next S tier weapons, there is the Phantom versus Vandal debate, and this is a big debate now because the Vandal just got some recent buffs. As you know, in the most recent Flashpoint 50k tournament, the Phantom had almost over a 90% pick rate, as opposed to the Vandal with a very, very small pick rate, of course. And it was just clear as day that the Phantom is just better in pro play. Even if some pros like Tens really like the Vandal, they still acknowledge that the Phantom was better. Now, that being said, however, with the recent fire rate increase and the damage increase on the Vandal, a lot of people might be asking the question, is the Vandal all of a sudden good enough? Well, the problem with this change is it doesn't actually change the thing that we needed changed on the Vandal, which is the first shot accuracy. Everyone already knows that the Phantom has better first shot accuracy than the Vandal, and it seems that Riot is unwilling to up the Vandal's first shot accuracy just because they want to make a niche role for the Guardian, which is a really awful gun and not seeing any play. But the Vandal really needs a better first shot accuracy. When its power level all relies on its ability to not control its spray or get into long concentrated fights, but instead hit that first shot, having a bad first shot accuracy or a worse than the Phantom just doesn't really make any sense. And it is most likely not the case that the Vandal is going to surpass up the Phantom. It might increase from that 10% pick rate, maybe up to 30, if some people that already like the Vandal, like Tens, will probably now use it more than they did before. But as far as power level across the board, the Phantom is still better than the Vandal. It just edges it out. Now, moving on to the next weapon in the S tier, of course, we have to talk about the two pistols, the Ghost and the Classic. First off, the Ghost, of course, is in S tier because it's the #1 buy in pistol round. Of course, pistol players are buying this weapon, some combination between Ghost and Classic, and another couple of weapons that we're going to talk about in a bit. But Ghost is one of those weapons that is very effective at those longer ranges than the Classic. It can get that one-shot headshot if people are not buying armor. Now, that being said, however, a lot of people are leveling the playing field by buying a Classic plus shields, and in the head-to-head matchup, a lot of times the Classic plus the shields is beating the Ghost for lesser price tag. So that's something that you should consider. It really depends on your role, but typically 2 to 3 people on the team are going to be rocking the Ghost in some capacity on attack in particular. Now, the Classic, of course, is a very powerful weapon. We've broken it down multiple times, and it's just very, very good as long as you aim for headshots. You consistently try to connect, and if you ever do connect with a headshot and you don't kill the enemy right away, you can animation cancel it with a right click and finish them off just like that. Don't underestimate the right click on the Classic, especially when jumping. Even though it got nerfed, it's still a very consistent way to kill someone that you know is one shot, so definitely keep that in mind. And even whipping it out when you're chasing someone down, if you know they're one shot, that could be a legitimate strategy. Now moving on to the A tier, these are weapons that are consistently used in pro matches and ranked play, but they're not one of the weapons that define the meta by any means. They're weapons that rather are used in certain situations, but they all have a cemented place in the meta. The first weapon in the A tier is definitely the Sheriff, which is a weapon that pros use consistently almost across the board, because Sheriff is one of those weapons that has the capability of upgrading or exchanging with far better weapons. Now the big problem with Sheriff, however, is it's actually not that good when you're swinging with it or when enemies are swinging you with it. It's far better when enemies are slow walking, or you're slow peeking corners, or you're catching an enemy off guard. This is why a lot of times the lurker will pick up the Sheriff. Whoever is the lurker on your team, someone like a Phoenix for example, if he's lurking around, he will try to make a play with the Sheriff, especially if he got a couple of kills but they lost that first round. Moving on to that second round, he might upgrade to that Phantom, because he has the possibility, if he goes on a flank or goes on a play and gets a couple of kills, all of a sudden that round that really shouldn't be winnable is all of a sudden winnable. And that's why the Sheriff is so good. It might be one of those weapons that is the best weapon that you could pick on an eco round or when you're trying to force buy. So definitely don't sleep on this gun at all. Now the next weapon we gotta talk about is still in the A tier. It recently got a nerf, but it's the Shorty, and it got several nerfs. Specifically, it doesn't slow people as much by hitting headshots from a further distance away, but realistically, the Shorty is still just as good as it's always been at what it was trying to do, which is cheesing out kills from close range. Now, sure, you're not gonna be able to hit as many flying shotgun shots if you're Jet, or you're not gonna be able to kill someone from a very long distance away, but that really only affected the judge more than anything. The Shorty is still very good at holding close angles, controlling smoke, stacking points, trading out for kills, and the fact of the matter is, even if the enemy has full armor, if you pump someone in the chest with this, you can kill someone with one shot, and you can kill two people without having to reload. This weapon is one of those weapons that has the capability of schmozzing the enemy team, killing them even if they have a Phantom or an operator or whatever, killing them and taking their gun, and then all of a sudden you get to upgrade for free at a low cost of $200. I mean, honestly, this gun really, in my opinion, might be a little bit overpowered, but definitely let me know what you think about it in the comments down below. Do you think the Shorty is overpowered? Do you think it deserves to be in this game? Would you rather it not be in this game? Definitely let me know your take in the comments down below. Now the next weapon in the A tier is of course the Spectre, which is a weapon that a lot of people typically, if they're trying to force buy, they will buy to the Spectre. And when you win that first round and you only have enough money for just buying a Spectre plus full armor, this is the go-to. Now, that being said, not everyone on your team is going to be buying the Spectre, and some people are going to be upgrading to the Bulldog, which I'm going to talk about in a second. But the Spectre is still a very powerful weapon. It's consistent at doing what it does. And what that is consistently, as long as you're playing in your effective range, you're going to be able to outperform all the weapons in your price point and lower, which is really good. You're going to be able to take trades with people like Stingers. You're going to be able to outrange a lot of the shotguns, and you're going to have a 30-round clip that's silenced. So you're going to be playing really well into smokes. This is a really comparable weapon, but remember, specifically if you're up against these Vandals or these Phantoms, a lot of times you want to be engaging at a closer range, and you really need to be going for headshots, because you really need that aim punch, and you need those multiple headshots if you want to actually win a matchup against better guns. So definitely keep that in mind. Then we're going to the next weapon in the A tier, the last weapon in the A tier. We have the Bulldog, which is a gun that a lot of people feel is worse than it is, and I think it gets that bad rap because it's a hard weapon to use. It might be one of the hardest weapons to use in the entire game, but the Bulldog is very good for its price point, and in my personal opinion, makes the Guardian absolutely obsolete. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Guardian later, about its price point and its lethality, but the Bulldog, if you can learn to control it, is a gun that's really capable of getting multi-kills. It's a gun that's capable of trading up against some of the better ARs. It's going to consistently outrange weapons like the Spectre. So just for its price point, it is extremely, extremely powerful, and it's one of those guns that you have to practice, because sometimes you're going to pop off on that first round, right? And you're going to have enough money just to buy full armor plus a Bulldog, and you should, because going into the third round, a Bulldog is going to scale a lot better than a Spectre is. But if you don't practice the Bulldog, then you're just not going to be able to perform. It's as simple as that. So what you need to do is go into free-for-all and just rock the Bulldog for like 30 minutes to an hour. I'm serious. You might get farmed for a while, but I guarantee with enough practice and, you know, just put on some music, whatever you want to do, just frag out with the Bulldog, you're going to be way more consistent, just putting a little bit of time into this gun. Try practicing aiming down the sights, try practicing hip firing. You're going to be really, really good at this gun incredibly quickly, and then you're going to have a lot better time in your game. So you're not going to be afraid to pick the Bulldog, even though you know it's the best weapon in the scenario. Sometimes people just don't pick it because they don't think that they can operate it as well as they should be able to. Just put a little bit of practice and you'll be good to go. Now, moving on to the next tier, we gotta talk about the B tier, which are weapons that have seen pro play by certain players or in certain strategies. They're very good guns. They're capable of getting a lot of value in your ranked games as well, as long as you understand how to use them, you understand the win condition behind them, and how to set up engagements where these weapons thrive. Now, the first weapon in the B tier is none other than the Judge, which is a weapon that, one, got its upped price recently in the new 1.07 patch, and of course, all the shotgun nerfs that go along with the Judge as well, just make it a little bit worse than it was. But before, a lot of pros were considering this gun very powerful, and in ranked, this gun was honestly dominating. It was one of those guns that if enemies didn't respect you, if they didn't check you, if you got yourself pushed up in a cubby that they didn't know you were there, if you set up the proper engagements, it could 150 to 0 multiple enemies out of nowhere. And for the most part, that's not really that changed. Sure, at the longer ranges, it's not going to slow people as bad. And yes, it does cost a little bit more money. But if enemies walk into you and they don't check you and they don't punish you for holding that close location, you're still going to be able to farm them with the Judge. And for that reason, it still can be a very effective weapon to rock on defense in particular. Now, in my opinion, I wouldn't be rocking the Judge in attack on an eco round or a force buy round because it's very hard to set up those appropriate trades unless, of course, you're playing Jet, who has the means to fly in and create that opportunity. But for everyone else, if you're on defense and you're holding a close angle, sure, go ahead, play the Judge. Maybe if you're holding bind on defense, you're holding U-Haul, sure, you can rock that. I probably wouldn't rock it every single round, but in certain circumstances, you might be able to get a little bit of value with it. And maybe if you're holding double doors on Haven on defense, maybe if enemies walk in and they don't respect you, you can get a little bit of value with it. But remember, if enemies ever figure out your judging, they're never going to push into you. And second off, you got to understand that if you ever get put in a retake scenario with the Judge, it's going to be really difficult for you to get in, unless, of course, you're someone like Raze or Jet that can force that engagement. So definitely keep that in mind. It can be a liability. It is a high risk, high reward, feast or famine weapon. Now, moving on to the next weapon in the B tier, we got to talk about the Ares, which is a weapon that Sinatra basically dominates with. And as we know, Sentinels is the best team in NA right now, and Sinatra is our best player in NA, but of course you could have your own personal opinion on that. But he gets a lot of value on the Ares, specifically on Sova. And the reason that this is true is because, of course, with heavy penetration and knowledge of different recon rollouts, you can get a lot of value just wall banging people. I mean, if you're playing Haven double doors and you catch an enemy hiding in a cubby outside of double doors, what do? You just kill them through the wall. Simple as that. You didn't have to take a fair matchup. You are literally just annihilating them. And then on Ascent, on defense on B, that is a legitimate strategy, rocking Sova and an LMG on defense on B, because enemies really can't push through there. I mean, Sinatra alone is holding all of B site, which allows his team to have more resources on mid and on A. And you might think that this is just a strategy that just works in pro play, but in my opinion, it works even better in ranked because people don't know how to counter these LMGs. And honestly, an Odin, when you zoom in right away, and even in areas against some of the worst guns, you can win a lot of matchups because enemies can't jiggle you because you can just wall bang them through the wall, and it can really punish enemies that you find. So this is a weapon that is good in the B tier. It has a legitimate place in pro meta, but unfortunately, only realistically Sova can use these LMGs to their maximum effectiveness, and that's why both the Ares and of course the Odin is in the B tier. Now, moving on to the next weapon in the B tier, we gotta talk about the Marshal, which is a gun that sees pro play. It's really good in ranked in a certain circumstance, but let me explain exactly the circumstance that you should use the Marshal. So, Marshal is really good if you win that first round, and into the second round, when enemies are saving, that is a really good time to buy the Marshal because, one, Marshal can scale up later if you play those long sidelines, and two, when enemies aren't buying armor, it's just like better than in the op. I mean, sure, you can't zoom in twice, but the Marshal is still one-shot body-shotting enemies if they don't buy any armor, and that is why it's so good on that second round, especially on defense or even on attack if you're pushing along sideline. The Marshal can challenge Heaven or challenge Long or whatever the case may be, but the problem happens where afterwards you win that round, going into the third round, enemies are going to be buying rifles, and you're going to have a Marshal. Hitting those headshots is not easy. I'm not going to pretend it is. You got to put some practice into the Marshal, but if you can get some kills in that third round, that is the litmus test, where if you can get some kills in that third round and you can pop off with the Marshal, then your economy is going to be so stacked because the Marshal's so cheap, and you're going to be able to upgrade to Ops when you die the next time, or you're going to be able to buy your teammates. It's just a really powerful weapon. High effort to get good at it and challenge those ARs, of course, but if you put in the time and effort and really grind out the skill limit on this weapon, then you're gonna have a really good time and you're gonna be able to carry a lot of games. Now, last up in the B tier, we gotta talk about the Frenzy. Yes, the Frenzy. This is actually up from previous tier lists, specifically because some pros, and Sinatra in particular, have been using the Frenzy to varying effects and getting a lot of value with it in pro play. Now, the Frenzy is not easy to control by any means, but it is only 400, which matters a lot, especially when you're thinking about someone like Phoenix, where if you don't have to buy a 500 credit Ghost, you're going to be able to buy those double flashes. Or on another character, you could potentially buy the Frenzy plus armor and guaranteed get at least a kill even up against the Ghost from close range, because you're going to be able to survive that first headshot. The Frenzy is a very powerful weapon, but it does take a great bit of control, and it is kind of niche in where it's used. It really depends on what your abilities are and how they line up with the Frenzy, and if they matter more or less than certain abilities or having armor. So realistically, you got to look at your kit and decide for yourself. But if you plan to use the Frenzy in your games, you got to make sure you put a little bit of practice into it, because it's not an easy weapon to control, especially from those mid ranges. But if you can learn to control it, you're going to be able to still duel those Ghost users from those further away ranges, so definitely keep that in mind. Now, moving on to the C tier, there's only 2 weapons in the C tier, and we got the Stinger and the Bucky. The Bucky, we're gonna talk about that weapon first. The Bucky's just not very good at doing what it does. Unfortunately, it can hypothetically kill someone from a longer range, and that's like the one plus side to this weapon, is because with that convergence fire, you can kill someone at a longer range, but it's primary fire, which it's what we really want to use it for. The problem with that is it's too slow. If an enemy pushes you or 2 enemies push you, you can't kill them both with the Bucky. You can kill one of them and then you're gonna die. Unlike the Shorty, who could actually kill both of them, or unlike the Judge, who could kill all of them, the Bucky could kill one, and that's it. And yes, you could kill people with the alternate fire, but for 900 credits, why wouldn't you just buy the Shorty instead at a cheaper price? And if you want to be challenging people at further ranges, just buy the Sheriff. It's cheaper and better at doing what you want it to do. I mean, honestly, Bucky's just in this really weird spot. It was already in this weird spot before, saw almost no pro play, and now with these nerfs, I mean, realistically, it was already bad, and it's still bad. Now, the Stinger is a weird one, because the Stinger does see a little bit of pro play, and I think that the Stinger can get some value at cheesing out kills as kind of a fat Frenzy, right? That's really what a Stinger is. But the thing is, if you're using Stinger, typically it's better for you to be using a shotgun, but I will give you the one example where I would think a Stinger might be more valuable, and it's if you're aggressively pushing angles on attack when you are trying to create space really aggressively and cheese people out. Like, defense shotguns are definitely better in general, but the Stinger has a little bit more range and it has a little bit more versatility, so it's at the top of C tier, and it does have its uses, but typically it's not in the same power level of shotguns. It just does a worse job at a more expensive price than something like a Shorty, for example. Now, moving on to the last weapon in the entire game, the F tier weapon. You already know what it is. It's the Guardian, and the Guardian's awful. It sees no pro play, pretty much. It's just very, very bad. And yes, it has first shot accuracy. Yes, it's only 2,500 credits. Doesn't really matter at the end of the day. The Guardian is just really bad at taking duels. It's extremely worse than all of the rifles, and if you have that much money, you would much rather be buying either a rifle or buying down to something like a Bulldog. The Bulldog basically makes the Guardian obsolete, and the Guardian's really the biggest reason why the Vandal is not getting its first shot accuracy bonus. Now, even if the Guardian was the exact same price as the Bulldog, I'm not sure that it would see substantial pro play. I think that pros would still use the Bulldog instead, and that really is a red flag for you if that is true. So definitely let me know what you think about the Guardian in the comments down below. Do you think it's bad? Do you think it's secretly good? Do you think it should be changed in what way? I'm curious about your insight insight in the comments down below, so definitely let me know. And the GameLeap website is your one-stop shop to master any of the weapons on this list with in-depth mechanical and weapons guides that you can only find at the GameLeap website. So do yourself a favor and go check it out in the links down below. And thanks so much for coming by. See you next time. This is Coach Mills. Bye.